Hi, my name is Sean Shaler. That's my friend and co-host Jesse Lobbs. Am I supposed to say
Hello.
last names? And that's our guest for the next 2 weeks, Stephen Long. Hey guys, what's going on? How are
Welcome,
you?
Stephen.
I am well.
You, I thought he was going to say, "I am welcome," and I was going to say, "Yeah, that's why we invited
He is
you."
welcome,
He
very
is-
welcome. And I'm doing great, by the way,
Excellent.
if you care.
I always care. I can't speak for Stephen because I don't like
Thank
speaking for other people. Stephen, do you
I,
care?
I do often speak for other people,
It
but
just, that's true. Stephen literally makes a job out of speaking out for.
yeah,
Well,
Stephen's a lawyer in his real life,
right.
Yeah.
So there's
outside of this video.
outside of the internet.
Yeah.
if you need to do any lawyering today on behalf of abused animals, I think this is a great opportunity to do that.
Are the
Yeah.
ecological wreckage of Mount Moon.
Oh my goodness, what a
That was rough.
monstrosity of the way they treat it. It's embarrassing, quite frankly. So
Embarrassing.
anyway, welcome Stephen and 2 listeners to PokéMalarkey. This is episode 6, which has a title that I can't remember. I wrote it down somewhere. Clefairy and the Moonstone.
Fairy and the
And-
Moonstone.
We hope you've been enjoying PokéMalarkey. A PokéMalarkey, I do that every week, which is
Every
our
week.
vodcast thing that is a combination of a beloved franchise and a 40-minute Zoom call and a word that sometimes Joe Biden says, and it makes me chuckle. So thank you for joining us. Stephen, do you mind if we open with like a small introduction to yourself?
Sure. Are you? Oh, you're not providing it. I'm providing
Oh
it.
no, I will. I'll give you a starter, and you take it
Okay.
wherever you want to go. I'll give you the starting
right.
Pokemon of questions, and then you take that question and raise it however you would like.
Okay.
What's your origin story with Pokemon? What familiarity do you have? To what level are you an expert?
All right. I can field that. Way back, late high school. My friends and I played Magic: The Gathering. One of my friends always seemed to be into the stuff that younger people were into, so he sold all of his Magic: The Gathering cards for Pokemon cards, and none of us joined him. We all
That might
mocked
have
him.
financially bit him in the rear end at this point.
I think ultimately did. He wound up giving up on the Pokemon cards since none of us followed him.
Oh,
Then he
no.
went to Magic, and each point you lost a whole large percentage of it.
Ooh.
So during the prep for this call, I did locate this. I don't know how that registers. These are Pokemon Snap stickers from my time in Blockbuster.
Adorable.
Wow.
Did
That
someone
is-
left these on the machine when I was working there one day and never came back for them, so I took them.
So for anyone out there under the age of 25-ish, a Blockbuster is literally a place where you would go to rent media. And I'm kind of joking, but also kind of serious because I was a rural kid, so I actually didn't know what Blockbuster was.
That's also
for
kind
a
of the
long
case
time.
with Pokemon Snap, which Switch is
Yeah.
bringing back, fortunately.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I mixed feelings on rail shooters, so I'm not a huge Pokemon Snap fan, but that's okay. I accept its place
Camera.
in the franchise. I don't like on-rail shooters. It's just not my genre. So that's what I know. You're not shooting them literally. That'd be kind of more. That sounds like a PETA
Thank
game.
God.
That sounds like a PETA
That'd be a
game.
very
actually,
different
doesn't
game.
it? But it's okay. I'm sorry I interrupted your Blockbuster story. I just didn't want young people to feel out of the loop when they had to think about renting physical media.
Consider
from
it a
store.
Sean footnote.
Yeah, it's worthwhile. Kids these days won't know what it had been,
They
but
will have no idea.
I would get 5 free rentals per week. Eventually, I used them up on the things that I wanted to see. And since I had at least one friend that was into Pokemon, I rented the Pokemon tapes, and I probably liked it more than I would have cared to admit at the time. I don't know that I didn't really stick with it though. But my girlfriend and the mother of my child, big fan. So she's been wanting me to play Pokemon games for a long time. But yeah. Yeah, and I've seen some of the movies, like the Detective Pikachu and stuff, and played the most recent Switch full title. That is my experience level.
So you did play Sword and Shield, but not like Let's
Just
Go Easy.
Shield.
Just Shield. Okay. To
Just
be fair,
Shield.
I just got Shield and I haven't even popped it in yet, but it's on my to-do list.
Yeah.
Jesse, just curious, did you see Detective Pikachu? I blanked there for a second.
No. And I
I
know.
recommend.
I
Oh,
need-
really?
recommend. Yeah, I
Yes.
thought it was great. I loved it.
I haven't. I blame the unending stream of Naruto in my life that stopped me from seeing anything else. I'm
That's
sorry.
totally fair. No, I'm with Steven. I love Detective. I wouldn't say it's a good movie, but it's a very enjoyable movie, if that makes any sense.
It's an enjoyable movie, not a good movie.
That's right.
We don't have time for this. I'm going to take us down a rabbit hole, and I don't want to.
It is.
Sorry.
There's no rabbit. I just described it perfectly, Jesse. Why would you need to amend that in any way, shape, or form? But also, I have a huge man crush on Ryan Reynolds, so I know it's cliche.
He's a very attractive man.
He is. He's very attractive, and he's got my style of comedy. Well, Steven, thank you for joining us. I'm sorry your friend sold his magic cards and then doubled down on poor financial decisions by rebuying his magic cards. Hopefully he did it soon enough.
Steven, I'm also, I want to tell you, I share your grief about the downfall of Blockbuster, so you're not alone.
I was probably like 20 before I got to use a Blockbuster, and then 2 years later it was gone. You know, it was wild. Wild times we lived in. Hey, that's all the introduction I have. Jesse, do you have any odds or ends that you would like to share or clean up before we talk about the actual episode?
Real quick, I do need to tell everyone that there are PokéMalarkey socials now. I have finally held up my end of the labor of this podcast and show. Sean does almost everything, so it was about time for me to contribute beyond just running my mouth. So you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all under PokéMalarkey. And if you have any ideas or thoughts, or if you listen and would like to be a guest on the show, feel free to email us at pokemalarkey@gmail.com.
I actually
That's my
can't.
plug.
I need to renege on any credit given because, like, the reason that we record live, for example, is so that I can avoid all editing because I don't want to do any labor ever because I'm very lazy. I just need to throw that out there.
That's fair.
Yeah, thank you for setting that up. That's very exciting. And then on that note, I actually have a small anecdote, which is that last week I accidentally posted our PokéMalarkey episode, the audio version, to my other podcast instead of using the other podcast like I was supposed to. It was an accident.
Nice.
So in my head, we got like 5 accidental viewers from another, from another.
I bet
source.
they were confused.
I hope they were so entertained that they're like, "Hey, this is good. I'm gonna go find it." I doubt it, but I hope that's what happened. The crossover audience for Avatar: The Last Airbender.
So you did this on purpose, really. It was a move to lure in an audience. Clever.
Chris, if you're listening to this, that's only mostly true. Anyways, let's talk about the episode. Let's talk about Clefairy and the Moonstone. Jesse, would you care to give us a walkthrough?
So, I would love to. This week, episode 6, Clefairy and the Moonstone. So, of course, last week we end with Ash picking up a new teammate, Brock, the former Pewter City gym leader. Well, Ash, Brock, and Misty continued their journey hiking toward Mount Moon. They come upon a nerd who's under attack by a swarm of Zubat, and fortunately, they save him. We find out from Seymour the scientist, very important to him that you would call him Seymour the scientist, not a mister, not an Esquire, Seymour the scientist. Seymour the scientist reveals that some ecological changes that humankind has inflicted upon Mount Moon has affected the Pokemon ecosystem. So that's why the Zubat were out of the cave attacking him. And of course, who does it turn out to be is harming the ecosystem? Well, Team Rocket. Team Rocket's there because they want to get their hands on the Moonstone. Steven, I love your reactions to this. Thank you for egging me on here. They're after the Moonstone. He oohs and
ahs in all the right places. He's a great story listener.
He's so great at listening. Team Rocket tries to steal the Moonstone. We encounter Clefairy. Pikachu, as usual, befriends the Pokemon and discovers everything about the situation and tells it to Ash. We find out that the Clefairy are actually somewhat of an advanced society, and they kind of pray to the Moonstone, which raises interesting questions about, raising and controlling and exploiting Pokemon, but we shouldn't go down that hole because it destroys everything we're working for. Fortunately, though,
every 2 to 3 weeks, I think we could find a... Every 2 to 3 weeks, I think we could find a sort of Pokemon universe altering piece of information that we have to ignore.
It's very dangerous to start that. But Team Rocket, they do manage to get their hands on the Moonstone. They get away, but fortunately, Onyx and Clefairy save the day, and they stop Team Rocket from taking the Moonstone, but blow it up a little bit, and pieces of the Moonstone rain down upon the Clefairy, and we get a few Clefables out of that. And Seymour the scientist decides he'll live there forever with the Clefairy, and one day go to space with them. Ooh, like aliens, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. But that's Clefairy and the Moonstone. Wrapped up as well as I can.
Beautifully done.
Steven, you should go first. Any thoughts or first impressions about the rampant devastation we caused?
And they don't have to be polite either. We should point that out.
Okay. I did take some notes, as my memory is not what it once was. This is not episode specific, but I don't think I'd heard the intro song in like over a decade, and I forgot that it's very good.
It's so good.
Slams.
Where it's going and I'm enjoying. Also, when I had watched this a long time ago, I did not know that it was called Indigo League. So when you asked me to watch episodes 6 and 7 of Indigo League, I assumed it was something that I had not seen before. So then when I did a search on Netflix for it, I went, wait a minute. I was like, this is
serendipity.
Yeah.
Did we know it was called that as kids, or I mean,
I didn't.
At the time it was probably just Pokemon. I
think it was just.
So.
I think it was just called Pokemon.
It wasn't Indigo League until another league was founded.
Right. Until there were 8 more, and then it was Indigo League.
Yeah. Oh man, I had a variety of thoughts. I was confused why Seymour appeared to have what I would refer to as Mega Man boots.
Wow.
He looked like a very normal scientist, but his boots looked like he was a Mega Man character. I don't know why. It never came up, never mattered at all. Maybe they just couldn't draw other footwear. Last related bit, I forgot that Brock's name was Brock, so in my notes I have him listed as Rock.
I mean, more or less.
Well, he would probably be flattered.
Brock from Pewter City with Rock Pokemon?
Yeah. Totally. I mean, effectively, they called him Brock because he plays with Rock. Like,
right.
Yeah, that's why I did that. Those are my initial thoughts. I have many more notes than that, but I don't want to control the talk too much all at once.
I found a picture of Seymour's boots here. I don't know if you guys can't see it, but the podcast audience, they really are. They're just very flat. There's no laces. They look like galoshes, kind of. We'll make them.
First of all, galoshes. Seymour is a chump, and I hate him. He stops
he's awful.
Catching a Clefairy, and first of all, Ash doesn't need any help to be any worse at catching Pokemon. Mm-mm. So it's really a bitch move, in my opinion. And I know he's a Pokemon, like, I don't know. He just wants to preserve their natural habitat, which I appreciate. But the whole world is about catching and raising Pokemon, and he's getting in the way.
I get that he's a seemingly well-intentioned human, but mostly he seems to be a hindrance with some really strange ideas and maybe kind of a cultish approach to Pokemon. It's a little weird. I'm not gonna, I shouldn't judge his beliefs, but he's a strange guy, and the poetry also isn't very good. So
does it not have the tinges of Scientology? Pokemon coming here in a spaceship, and evolving from there.
I was more concerned by his poetic skills, which were rudimentary at best.
I'm just very frustrated that he prevented Ash from catching a Clefairy because Ash needs more Pokemon.
Somewhat related to that, Jesse, I did have a note on. So apparently, when the Zubats were all flying around, Brock caught one.
Yes, somehow he caught one.
And then later,
really?
Yes.
Sean looks like he's going to say something.
No, I didn't realize he caught one.
So
I listen more than I watch to the episode.
He actually tells Ash, because Ash goes, Zubat, and he goes, yeah, I caught one while we were all standing around, more or less.
So I put that in my notes, that when there's a cluster of those, Brock is like, why not? Throws a ball and catches them off camera. And then we have later Clefairies and Clefables everywhere. And I'm like, is Brock somewhere in the background catching one of them? Because that seems like a thing that he would do, I guess, at this point. But it doesn't occur to Ash when he sees a horde of Pokemon to go, I don't know.
Exactly.
There's a
It
flock
never
of
occurs to
Spearow.
Ash.
There's a flock
All
of
it
Spearow
takes is
somewhere
just
laughing at him.
Yeah. Does he not listen to the opening theme of the show, where you got to catch them all?
He
He
repeatedly
says he's going to
defies.
catch them all enough.
And
But
aren't Clefairy in game? They're moderately rare. Like you do find them in Mount Moon, but they are like it's like a 1% occurrence rate or something pretty minimal, 1 or 5 maybe. So yeah, like come on, Ash, jump on that, would you, buddy?
And the Pokédex said that the Clefable are very rare, but then we saw 20 of them just standing there.
Well, they evolved
was
right
a
there,
triggering
and then that
event.
would be an ideal time to go ahead and grab one. But again, Ash repeatedly defies. He should have, by now, I would love to count the Pokemon that he should have. He should have a Weedle, he should have a Spearow, he should have a, does he have, he does have a Pidgey. What else has he missed in just 6 episodes? What else has he missed? A Zubat, should have a Zubat.
Or he didn't even try.
Clefairy or
Rattata.
a Clefable.
Rattata, he missed the rat Pokemon.
He
which
did.
Is like
he missed the rat that occurs more frequently than anything short of Pidgey. And Ash, you're pretty embarrassing. That's all. I'm glad you're 10, and we're going to forgive you. I just spent time with my 10-year-old nephews yesterday, and I thought, you know what? If this human was out in the world, I can kind of see how some of this would happen. But
And your nephews are still going to school. Ash doesn't go to school. He just the school of hard knocks.
At least my nephews are trying. Let's put it that way. Good work, kids.
I was struck. This episode sets up something that happens over and over again in Pokemon, which is some kind of ecological crisis with the Pokemon. We see Team Rocket strung up the lights, which has really affected the Pokemon. Sandshrews are drying out, which sounds terrible. The Paras don't know where to plant their mushrooms, and the Zubat are flying out into the daylight. I know it's not the first time that they do this, but they do have a lot of very heavily ecologically themed Pokemon episodes.
The Diglett one comes to mind later when they keep trying to build, and then the Diglett are ruining everything, and they're just like, that's all right, we'll just keep building, and if we build enough, maybe the Diglett will get bored and go away. But
and Tentacruel later on, that terrible woman.
I forgot about her. Cruella, or whatever her name was. I forgot her name. And then just one more thing that I wanted to point out during the cave that really made me laugh is like how high the Clefairy were jumping, and they don't strike me as like a nimble creature, but they're springing, and every time I see it, it just makes me laugh. Just uncontrollable laughter to watch them springing around the Moonstone. I don't know why, they just don't.
It is very funny.
They defy my misperceptions.
They're aliens, Sean.
Zero gravity all the time.
I do have in my notes related to the cave, the Team Rocket fight that happened in the cave. Ultimately, there was a whirlwind, I think maybe was the move. There was the flapping gust sort of thing, and then Team Rocket is thrown backwards into the darkness in the cave. I was trying to figure out how far must they be thrown for the fight to have ended, where at least geographically my sense was maybe they knocked back to 20, 30 feet and be like, well, I guess we lost. We've been moved. I don't know.
Well,
by the rules of sumo wrestling.
I don't know if you've seen, but every time they're blasted off, it's quite far. Usually.
Normally, like it's up into the sky and then they become a star. But this was so I don't. Maybe it was out of the cave, up into the sky, and into a star. I don't know.
Maybe, and they had to come back all that way. But they do show up again, which is a lot faster than they usually do. Usually it's one and done, but this time, here we are again.
Yeah, the geographical relativity has logic to it in this episode. That's good.
Yeah,
good. I also wanted to know. I'm sorry. There's a couple things that strike me about this kind of fight in this episode in general. There's like a lot of like 90s slapsticky kind of things in it. So like Meowth tripping Seymour, and it's very comical and silly.
Have a nice trip,
and then he can't find his glasses, and he's like the whole "I can't see a thing without my glasses" or whatever that thing. And then also Jessie makes a joke about let's show them that size doesn't matter as she sends out Ekans, I believe, and that was pretty. So there's a few things about this, but I was like, this is a very
if you want to talk about 90s, they flat out. Ash at one point says, "Are you doing the Macarena to Pikachu?"
Yes.
Yes, that is all. So This episode has all the '90s children tropes, except for that size doesn't matter. That's probably a little probably didn't get it as a '90s kid.
And even the Seymour trip. So Seymour was running, and the geography of that fight, as far as an attack goes, doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because Seymour would have been running past them to be tripped in that fashion. Because had he run at them, then tripping doesn't work. And then they tripped this nerd, and he's lost his glasses, which I had glasses as a kid, so no slight there. But I think it was Meowth said something to the effect of, all's fair in a Pokemon fight. But Seymour's not engaged in a Pokemon fight. Seymour has no Pokemon. He's just being tripped in a fight. And aren't there rules in Pokemon fights? I don't...
They're
Not when
very
you
much...
Rocket.
Well,
Okay.
which turns out to bite them more often than not. But yeah, they're...
All's fair in love and war, according to Jesse's oft-cited phrase.
Yeah. But they don't believe in love.
I would like to point out, though, the Pokemon battles here, again, early on, Team Rocket is pretty good at battling. They're not the chumps they'll become to be later on. I mean, even when Onyx shows up again, Coughing knocks the fuck out of Onyx. And I would have thought that Coughing does get, like, he does faint too or whatever. But I did not expect Coughing to be, I guess that hard-headed to just knock Onyx out in one blow. I was pretty impressed with that.
They haven't been defeated yet. Their self-confidence is still fairly high.
That's right. They haven't lost 800 times yet.
Right. Eventually, they get to a point where they're not trying anymore.
No, it's just like, go.
Why
Just give it a shot.
I like the context or memory of the other episodes, but Team Rocket actually got a huge boulder out of that cave room and onto a toboggan of some kind. And I have to imagine that at least that segment was one of their greatest successes throughout the run of Pokemon, that there was a boulder that they removed from a cave and got away from the protagonist without them seeing.
It's amazing.
It's
what they can do.
That's an amazing feat.
In the time that smoke screen comes out and dissipates, Team Rocket can get away with anything.
How did they do that? How did they move that boulder? It's incredible.
See, they have a lot of knowledge and skill. It's just they keep it hidden in smoke screen.
Well,
Team Rocket,
is there a show
doesn't
where we
understand.
see Team Rocket, the Team Rocket side of things instead? Is that ever?
There's more.
would not
There's
seem-
episodes where we get like more Rocket sort of centric storylines. Is that
Okay.
fair?
Yeah. The thing is, though, we come to find out that Jesse and James are the worst members of Team Rocket. I mean, even their boss regards them with such disdain, even though we come to love them. And it's because they're bumbling fools. And half the time you feel like they don't really want to do this, but they're just there doing it anyway.
I think the smoke screen defies the logic of object permanence. Like once the smoke screen occurs, nothing inside of the smoke screen is real. It's just sort of an imaginative state. Anything can happen in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That's clever then that they would use it.
It is. It's very handy. If you don't use smoke screen in game, I recommend all the time. And then anything goes under the smoke screen. I'm just kidding. Don't keep that move.
It's one of those things where the anime move is way more effective than the in-game move. Just like Caterpie's string shot from a few episodes ago.
Goodness.
When is that
Caterpie,
ever
you
actually used?
worthless monster.
Never. But in the show, all of these moves are like amazing, and they all have some validity, and you can rely on all of them. Not so much in the games.
They're like, guys, we have this great game, and all these Pokemons have these moves, but some of these moves are worthless. What do we do? Well, let's make them pivotal in the show. Make them mandatory.
You can't trick me into keeping this move. I'm going to forget it as soon as I get a better one.
That's
I swear
right.
to God.
The show's not going to change my mind on that. Do you want to, Steven, do you have any final thoughts to wrap up on the episode, and then we'll talk about some video game and some manga?
Oh, I'm ready for the video
Let
game.
me see. There was the scene where the Clefables and Clefairies were doing the metronome. And in the background, for some reason, the scientist was in Onyx's hole. I just didn't understand why any of that was happening, but that's It's a very small quibble. It was just strange watching in the background the scientist was doing this with the Clefables while he was standing in a hole up to his shoulder level, like where I am on the Zoom.
I didn't notice that. I gotta pay better attention to these episodes.
Why was he there? I don't know.
Apparently, Sean.
I listen so much more than I actually watch, so that I think I miss a lot of details. But even as a kid, I was that way. Like if it was on, I was still playing with, toys or whatever. So I haven't changed. In that case, let's talk about game, because there is some game connection here, and I don't think, Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a bunch of manga crossover that we need to save time for? Or is manga?
There is just a bit that I will briefly cover, but I do have a bit to talk about video game wise, because this is the first cave that you go into, and oh my god, as a child, it's exhausting. At least in the later iterations of the game, you can see where the Pokemon are, and you can kind of be strategic and avoid the 18,000 Zubat in Mount Moon. But but in the earlier, generations of the game, you're stuck and just constant, just Zubat after Zubat after Zubat after Zubat after Zubat. And I hate the caves. The caves are my least favorite places to be in the games, and I hate it. I hate it so much.
I think that the difficulty curve. It's not that they're extremely difficult, but it is a decent.
It's just annoying.
Well, it's a decent trek to the cave from anything, right? So it's kind of just out there, and then there's nothing prior to this that like prepares you for, like, it's been so easy in the game to this point. You've done nothing useful in the game, and then you wander into this cave that's like 4 or 5 levels deep, and there's all these things that you don't want to miss. There's all like lots of dead ends. There's at least 3 or 4 dead ends in there.
And Team Rocket.
Lots of Team Rocket. So the difficulty spike to get, once you get into this cave, is like, oh, I actually like have to sort of pay attention and try to manage resources. And that's very not any point previous in the game whatsoever.
It's a struggle. I mean, getting through Mount Moon is really one of your, more difficult challenges early on, and you get the experience of your first experience in the game of going up against Team Rocket, and battling the grunts one after another, and then coming to find out that they're not there for a moonstone like they are in the anime. They're actually there to get a hold of these rare, priceless fossils.
Oh, I forgot about that, because we're more interested in the game. I think we're like closer to being interested in Bill than we are, like, Seymour doesn't appear in game at all. So we're talking about like fossils, right. And there's a museum in Pewter City or whatever. I forgot about that. Good call.
Yeah, because in the game you get after you fight the Pokemaniac, after the Team Rocket squad leader, you get the chance of getting the fossil that will become Kabuto, or the one that will become Omastar.
That Pokemaniac is kind of a Seymour nerd, isn't he? Like
he is very similar, so they do have that going for them.
Okay. I will say, since neither of us are Charmander people, that this cave is far harder than beating Brock. Because now that we're both...
It is.
Steven, of the traditional starter Pokemon, do you have a one of the 3, a particular favorite?
One of the starter...
The original 3 is Squirtle and Bulbasaur and Pikachu. Because you hadn't played any iterations of the original game, right? Oh, right. I'm sorry, I said Pikachu. Poor Charmander. I forgot about him.
Yeah. I had not played any of them until Shield. But of the original 3, like, all 3 of those are like in the Pokemon cartoon. God, I don't know. I probably liked Squirtle the most of the 3. The cutest of the 3.
I think the game kind of tricks you, because the Pokemon with which you're probably familiar that's like highly evolved is most likely Charizard as a child. And so it's like the game wants you to pick a fire Pokemon, and then you just burn through Viridian Forest, and it's also easy. And then you come up against like Brock in this cave where he's worthless if you've ever picked Charmander before, and it's very infuriating. But I feel like the game tricks you in that way on purpose, because there's no other fire type Pokemon prior to like it's Charmander or bust, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, weird difficulty curve, and then like I said, it's kind of a trek to and from. You don't know what the fossil does yet as a young lad. You have no idea. So
right.
I just did all this work for this
rock.
Fucking rock. and it's pretty frustrating. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wasted several rappel ropes as a kid because I didn't know what they did. I was like, oh, this maybe helps me get to a secret area or whatever, and it just dumps you back outside. And
You mean the escape rope?
escape rope. I'm sorry. What did I say? Rappel rope.
Somehow gets you out of the cave no matter where you are.
Right. Well, don't you know if you throw a grappling hook under a smoke screen, then you.
That's right. You can just get out.
Anything goes. Smoke screen. That's going to be our new podcast trope, I hope. I always wanted a podcast trope. Maybe that can be the one.
Maybe so.
Final thoughts on game parallels, Jesse.
No further thoughts on game parallels, except you are lucky if you find a Clefairy. I feel like in the early iterations of the game, in Let's Go, I feel like it was pretty easy to find a Clefairy, so their spawn rate must have been higher in that game than it was in the in red or blue or yellow. But as a kid, I didn't want Clefairy anyway. I just didn't speak to me.
In my current playthrough, I'm going to do what Ash is supposed to do, and I am going to catch them all. And so I did catch a Clefairy, but I'm sad to note that I forgot that Clefairy is not particularly useful in-game. I imagine Clefable gets more useful. I don't recall off the top of my head. But I was excited, just like, oh, I caught one. And, I found one, I caught one, first throw and everything. It worked out very nicely. And I was like, this Pokemon is semi-worthless in its current state.
Well,
Sorry,
that's harsh.
Well, it is, and then also I want to use my Moonstone on Nidorino, and so I can evolve into the beautiful, beautiful Nidoqueen, who is viciously OP in the early in game. So sorry, Clefairy, you're cute, and you jump really high. I'm so impressed. I bet you can dunk a basketball.
Shouldn't have been a normal Pokemon in the early games. That's your fault.
Absolutely.
I guess it's Satoshi's fault. Whatever.
And Steven, for the record, I would say you're not missing a whole lot in these early games if you get a chance to.
You are.
Well, sorry. No, let me finish. If you want to borrow Let's Go Eevee at some point is the one I have. I think Jesse has Eevee as well. They clean a ton of things up and modernize a ton of things. I don't like the throwing mechanic as much as like battle grinding and whatnot because I'm a JRPG fan. But I would highly recommend if you ever decided to play more Pokemon to do the Let's Go Eevee and just borrow it.
Okay.
Should.
I can be sold on that.
Absolutely. Like I said, JRPGs are life, so I miss just grinding through stupid, repetitive battles. But other than that, no complaints. Beautiful remakes.
Very briefly, the manga I would like to throw in here.
Please.
One of the fun things about this version because of course the manga follows Red instead of Ash, and Red is a much better Pokemon trainer than Ash Ketchum could ever hope to be. He and Misty end up going into Mount Moon and end up fighting Team Rocket because Team Rocket is in there to, get their hands on the Moonstone and rare Pokemon. That's what they're there to do. And the Team Rocket they go up against is a lot more hardcore than Jesse and James. For instance, the Team Rocket leader uses some kind of serum to speed up the evolution of his Rhydon into Rhyhorn. And they beat the crap out of Misty, and Red has to fight them off while Misty's knocked out. So they barely just get out of there with their lives because this Team Rocket plays no games. They are not chill. But they barely get out of there with their lives, and Red and Misty decide they have to train a lot harder if they're going to be able to beat Team Rocket.
It's as if they had a conversation where they recognize that they're 10 years old and fighting a criminal organization.
Exactly. A real crime syndicate, not just Jesse and James bumbling around.
Not just two lovable morons.
Right.
Steven, just for the record, I haven't been reading the manga at all because I'm bad at reading words, but Jesse has become the manga expert.
The literate of the two.
The good news about the manga, though, Sean, is it does consist of mostly pictures, so you could make your way through it.
You're right. I could see how much I could get through by ignoring words and just read picture,
Ignore word, read picture.
Read picture, yeah. Why say many word when few word do trick?
Few word do trick.
I just hit that episode the other day in my watch through with my wife. So we've got a few minutes here left, and I wanted to give Steven the chance. Steven will be back on next week. We record in twos because we're adults and we have to find time in that way. But Steven, if you had any other thoughts that should be adjacent to this episode, or you just wanted to complain about things, tell us about you. What's on your heart today?
And that was two very different forks as far as my heart and the episode.
Put them together.
Go with what you feel.
Right. I did put this note. I was considering not mentioning it, but watching the Pokemon rap, at the end of the Pokemon rap, I just had this moment of saying, I really do understand why Herman Cain enjoyed Pokemon. I don't know why that had crossed my mind, but the Poke rap just very, very delightful. And again, it's been 15, 20 years since I've properly heard the episode end. So that is my final takeaway. Or maybe it's also, I don't remember what Gary is, but I'm sure that comes up in other episodes.
Gary is Ash's rival.
And do we meet him, I assume, at some point?
Yeah, he's an asshole.
Okay, that's good.
Well, and in this episode, you'll recall that Steven's only interaction with Gary is when Ash is like, sometimes kids write stupid stuff on signs. And then it's like, Gary was here. Ash is a loser. And that's what Steven knows of Gary to this point.
Gets angry, races towards Cerulean City.
Yeah.
Outrageous. And
which is where we're headed next.
Yeah, we have in this episode we have discussed two politicians. For the record, I wanted to note that seems both Joe Biden and Herman Cain made it into a PokéMalarkey episode. That's very interesting. And then also, Steven, enjoy the Poke Rap while you can, because in my opinion, Pikachu's jukebox that comes in the next season is garbage, and I hate it. And it's
I think it's a lot better. At least the music works. I mean, these raps are terrible. I mean, it's like the most white person terrible rap it's just awful. It's so bad. At least Pikachu's jukebox has some bops.
I have never muted anyone not named Neil. I'm about to mute you right now. You take it back.
You mute me and I'll kill you. I will come and kill you. This is the only thing I had going for me.
Watch me. I'm a podcast tyrant. But we can argue more in next episode.
We can.
In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and close out of this one, but we'll be back next week to talk about Cerulean City. Steven, thank you so much. Jesse, thank you so much.
Steven. You're always welcome,
soon.
Sean.
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
Talk to you soon.
I bet.